thank you for joining us here on the Wild West podcast. My name is Richie Ritchie of the MHRT Network. It all glitched on me. Anyways, over here, you have Robert, who's representing his Los Angeles Chargers. Literally, you all just flashed on me. It was weird. I don't know if that was everyone or just me.
Oh, no, it was everyone.
But we have joining us here. Okay, we have joining us here. We have Robert representing his powder blue and gold with the Chargers. Over that away, it's always difficult getting the diagonal point down here on the pod. We have a guest joining us representing his. You can pretend that all you want. Just because you ordered it from some random place in China,
dude.
it's not me.
Bring it back, man.
Just admit it's from AliExpress. It's fine. There's nothing wrong with the good deal. Okay.
Mm-hmm. We will only judge you harshly for it. It's okay.
It's DH.
Yeah, there we go. Now we get to the truth.
Hey, you can't beat $30.
Exactly. I knew we'd sniff it out eventually, dude.
I'm not gonna judge you for buying your Chargers jersey from the back of a trunk.
Yeah, dude. I'm doing a side-by-side comparison here. That ain't.
Look at the Color Rush jersey, bro. I'm telling you.
I'm on it, dude. I'm looking right now, live, real time.
Listen, dog. Listen.
Nope, doesn't match.
Just let Rich get to the intro.
Robert.
Yeah, sorry,
Robert. I'm going to help you out here. This is a good lesson in life. Just because the dude walking down the street claims it's a real Rolex does not mean that it is. Okay? Now, anyway.
With that.
With that in mind. Diagonally over to down below here is Rafael El Capitan representing his Las Vegas Raiders. Rafael had been on Captain Jack's show a bunch of times together. He and I know each other for quite some time now. I am one of the few Broncos fans that will frequent Captain's show and have absolutely no problem being roasted by absolutely every single person in the chat. So that's just kind of the way things work when you are a Broncos fan joining a Raiders show. Deal with it. So Raph here joining our show representing his Las Vegas Raiders. And there is plenty of news, Raphael, for you to delve into, given some of the updates that we've seen over the course of this week. Thank you for joining the show. And we're going to, as soon as I introduce and go to Alex here, we're going to go right into the Las Vegas Raiders because that really is the, at least the largest kind of grouping of news
There's
within
a lot
the division.
that went on.
And then, of course, there's been a few trades as well that we'll get into immediately after that as well. I kind of do feel that coaches are, especially the offensive coordinator, like when you get into the offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator, or head coach, there's very little that can happen to a team that is more substantial than any of those three positions changing on a team, because it can have such a major impact in terms of what happens. You can kind of see what happened with AP, for example, last year when he was brought in as the interim coach. It changed the complexion of your team, and I think that's just a pretty good analogy in terms of what you can potentially see in terms of a major change like this. But I digress. And Alex, this is the real Alex Evans. You can catch his content over on Airhead Addict. And directly after the show here, you can catch him on the Lightning Fast Fantasy Podcast, where he goes into all of the details that you're going to need to make your fantasy team succeed. Exactly. So, Raph, with that in mind, let's delve and dive right into it.
Okay. So, after
and
that, just for that. Yep. Yeah, after for that coaching problems and see that it looks as very well, but you see that before, after we just kicked out Lugetti, I mean, whatever that means, because at the beginning, they just need to hire like an OC based on what player they thought is going to be proceed to trade like another player. But also, I really thought it's going to be good and frustrated because the way it's going to be used like the offensive coordinator and they're going to fire to underperform. They're all getting it right. I don't think. Because I don't think they hired him because Adams signed off with life options that they were together before. Because it looked that way. I mean, many teams that just run to the top 10 players for the feedback, so there's nothing new. I mean, they didn't get it like at a choice, but it's somebody had the influence. But I don't think that ever such it'll be ineffective. But they're gone, and here we are. Because I know they're gonna put on the trade, but they want to policy to him like to the coach. It's not gonna be like because there's like the stars and leaders. Because they didn't have like any share of leave because they just wanted to get position in it right now. But after we just suffered like Scott Turner and of course no Turner, I was like very, very close to enough because there's like another content. Also, there's like another candidate to make it feel right. Because if you remember of one of those offensive coordinators that work for Tampa Bay Buccaneers, which is very interesting because actually he was like the offensive coordinator that worked for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers to get it like the Super Bowl along with Tom Brady. But that was like the very close enough to see how are they going to bring over there like to lead the biter. But it seems that it could be like an interim offensive line coach, but that is fine. That is fine. I mean, they're gonna bring back the power, the blocking scheme is gonna be like really unexpected. But we had something to be issued up right now. But I thought it gonna might be go to. It's been a while since he won the Super Bowl as an offensive coordinator. Now it might be actually working and keeping around. But it's still got to really scares how many failed coaches enter the building with our young experienced head coach because they might be actually winning a couple of games and missing out for the quarterback. But I see look at the four of it, it seems like the offense improved like the F to a D plus because, like I said before, we are not tanking. We just suck. But tanking in place of the table is losing, but we're trying to do everything to fail and win it out. But I understand that the coaching defense, it really has really flaws. But it's just like a lost cause of it all. But Philly just working out for their own lane, which is basically hoping it keeps like Jackson Powers Johnson at the center. And maybe they get a blocker enough for the wrong game to get to the block. But we're not that stupid very enough. Because right now it's gonna be like a really same because we had sort of the midseason change into the link injuries because they just bring like to take everything out of the reason. Because if you remember,
right.
So
Rafa, on that note, when we look at where your coaching stable is right now, you're going to be inserting your passing game coordinator. It appears as your offensive coordinator in place of Gonsby, who is now obviously no longer in the building.
Yep.
But I do think it is rather interesting that you got rid of Rich Scangarello, who ran a somewhat successful offense in Denver. He went 4-1 with Locke when Locke stepped in and entered into the equation. Basically, Joe Flacco was a failed experiment in Denver because he only wants to run a certain type of offense and doesn't like being a stopgap or mentor. He just wants to come in and show that he can do the things still. So I guess what my question is do you think that it was a mistake, at least given for this season? I'm not saying for the offseason, because the offseason, obviously, that's the time for major changes if you're going to make them anyway. But if you're mid-season, why get rid of your quarterbacks coach who has offensive coordinator experience at a, with some success when he actually had his young quarterback step in? Why get rid of a guy like that? It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, I know it doesn't make any sense at all. But hopefully, because that was like a something mistake. Because I guarantee that after all these crazy stories that are about for like Luke Getsy, I guarantee that we're gonna just sort of win games to have to stretch it now. Because most of everyone that just wanted to predict like 4-13, 6-11, but are they gonna be shocker? Because if this what they wanted, or this wanted to get, I mean, how did it happen with like Mike Rabel or Jim Harbaugh on the market, and you don't even have it off of the interview? I mean, this is gonna be like a really which happen if we have Daniels or Cliff, which is a Jadian Daniels, which is the quarterback. I mean, they're gonna want it at the legit office because it's not like a really director. It's beyond tough to win for the roster we have. I mean, my knock on those quarterback coaches. I mean, they're gonna completely the utterly competitors in game management. I mean, what was about like the stat of about beating a score like the 3-0 to the final 2 minutes of the first half of the year, along with Antonio Pierce? I mean, it's getting like a lot of real head scratching decisions because it's really hard to win at this league. So you had to able to perform under pressure. Because how is it gonna be like a long-term retreat? How's it even like out of the league, or someone that doesn't have any experience as a successful coordinator, not only for the quarterback, but also they had to change it at all. But the scheme, it's not gonna be like a resolve anything about for the problem. But if we need to definitely finish it at the season, we need to improve like this clock management and overall the coaching if he wants to stay. But I thought we could have had like a positive during like the bye week coming off of 5 straight losses. Now that's very scary. But if we need something to like an offensive with mind coaching, high leverage, that'll be no problem at all. That'll be no problem. But you see, because over those coaches like Luke Getty and of course with the quarterback coordinator, they set out to fail and shock really the dogs. I mean, the only thing that's good at like motivation. Because if you guys remember the Detroit Lions, Dan Campbell, who was a great motivator, but also a great football coach. But it seems that we get being non-competitive in 4 out of the 5 straight losses with one game where the players show up, being terrible choices. But if we hold over his head right now in like a no-win situation, he can be real successful. But not without a good quarterback and, of course, a great offensive coordinator.
But I think this was the risk you ran hiring Antonio Pierce. Like, you guys finished second in the division last year, which means you get a second place schedule this year, and you're facing tougher opponents than you did obviously last season. A lot of teams have tape now on Antonio Pierce and his schemes that he likes to run on the players that you have. I think I know you said that you're not tanking, you just suck, but I really do
love that.
Yeah, that's an awesome quote right there. You gotta frame that.
You can't tank if your team's just objectively too bad to win. I mean,
we're not tanking. We just suck. But realistically, the Raiders do need to tank if you want to compete, especially in this division. You need to tank for a QB because you can't just continue to be mid. You can't continue to be 8-9, 7-10, 9-8. Like you can't continue to put up those records and expect to draft a QB that's going to put you in contention with the likes of Herbert, Mahomes, and obviously Nix is still a rookie, but he looks like he's playing pretty well to start as a rookie. So like, I get where you're coming from in terms of like coaching and everything, but realistically, the Raiders really do need to look at
possible.
No, straight up. Like I was shocked the Raiders didn't trade more guys at the deadline after following that absolute demolition job from the Bengals. And I even thought last show I predicted the Raiders were going to win that game. So I, was shocked more than anyone that was such a blowout. So like I don't know, man. It's tough, but and nobody wants to admit that you have to tank or should tank. But realistically, that's the best position for you guys. You have the defense. You have the beginning pieces of an O-line with JPJ and Colton Miller, although Colton Miller's having a down season. There are pieces there to start. You just need that guy. And that's why I said going into this season with Minshew and Aiden O'Connell, I never really expected, not to be that guy, but I did not expect the Raiders to really compete in this division because of that lack of QB play. At least with the Broncos, you had Nix and the kind of, at the time, uncertainty, but it was certainly better than what they had before, which was Wilson or Stidham. And I know me and Rich go back and forth.
Exactly. But I don't think it's gonna be like the real reason to tank it. And I know about like the cryptic message of Shedeur Sanders, and I just saw Pat McAfee's show about like the situation between Shedeur Sanders going to Las Vegas Raiders if we go through the draft. But I mean, tanking involves like playing younger players and keeping the talent healthy. Because I just realized that we're not gonna tank for like a quarterback or a wide receiver or a running back, because this is about like a team who doesn't want to play with some mediocre coaching. I mean, because we just wanted to see like a getting on ball, like a lot of defense, because we've been seeing a lot of this before. More enduring players in the coming up weeks. I mean, after we just saw for Christian Wilkins, and of course we got like the Denver toward Devontae Adams, and of course losing Josh Jacobs. I mean, if they wanted to do like a job, but they want to like go for the extra mile, because they definitely would put like the body on the harm's way. I mean, look at it over the last seasons. Renfro and Waller, they both in injuries, they could play through, because it's not a coincidence that both are not being used probably in the last season under Josh McDaniels. Because if they need something absolutely to guard the defense at the scale that the NFL has never seen, they're gonna bring like the best case scenario. 5 players should be out, everything kept. Because if we want to succeed with a lot of defense, with the younger talent, and of course along with Robert Spillane and Max Crosby, I mean, simply is gonna be like a recipe for like success. But we train for like the play calling, the look gets his play calling. It's simple like a recipe for the disaster, because we just went up for the play up to compete with Washington, to the worst team. Because if we want to tank, might as well as a good job. It's gonna be seen like it anyway. We end up with being success. By the time he gets along with most starters, won't be here anymore. And by looking at the past free agency and trades we made, it's not like we can see like the new players in the future having our success. Now we just have like the last season that's been good, but not between for the Daniels and Sagers, they fail out of bringing chemistry. But it seems that we're just being bad on purpose. Go for like a second half. I mean, not necessary, because remember the grooming that Stanker the first year back? I mean, that was awful. But if we have a good roster, doesn't need to get stronger, because if you do by staying with the course and drafting, I mean, that's not going to happen, because if we wanted to play knowing the season is definitely not going to be like over. If you guys remember, Derek Carr is a starter because no one at the roster will be competitive enough to be choosing a starter for over the last few years. But it seems that it's going to be like at the last place, but it should, because cultivating change is going to be like have to include getting rid of some bad juju over there for that team or the organization.
I mean, there's a lot of bad juju to get rid of in that organization.
Yeah, exactly.
So I mean, some of the things you're bringing up are items that I have discussed with my Denver Broncos on this show for Alex years, I think would be fair to say. Yeah, pretty much.
There's enough video evidence of that.
Yeah. So I think it's incredibly important that when you have a team that you've got an offensive line, et cetera, present. However, I think what it also comes down to is if you're picking high enough, I think you just need to target that quarterback to correct your team and get them on the right stage. But then you also need to then bring in an offensive coordinator that can complement your head coach and install the right vision. Now, if the Raiders are not going to extend past their current kind of position and maybe continue to lose a bunch of games, et cetera, then I think no offense, this is just my this is just my my thought process here is I think you need to reset. And I think this offseason, I think AP needs to go. I think you need to then my dog's been fed, thank you.
Oh my god!
What kind of operation you running over there? That sounds like a lot.
Oh man,
well, he's just attacking the idiot that's trying to break into the front door. Anyways, that's just kind of the quirk. Unfortunately, I have a puppy that just doesn't want to shut up at the moment. She's 7 months. She's 7 months old. But I think you need to reset. I think you need to get rid of AP, and then I think you need to come into this draft likely with a top 5 pick if you continue playing kind of where you're at. Now, Raf, you did bring up an interesting piece, and I'm about to bring in Angelo for kind of this next block here because we're going to want some additional Raiders fortification here to come in to round out the show because this is some pretty big news. This is big news, which is in what order do we think things should go in? Do you want to bring in a more competent head coach? Do you then want to bring in an offensive coordinator who is handpicked by that head coach and then bring in a quarterback that complements that head coach and offensive coordinator's vision? Or do you have confidence in the AP and then bring in a more competent offensive coordinator? What kind of those complex questions and other things, we're going to bring in Angelo, friend of the show, filled in for Captain Jack for those months, and get his take on those very questions. Angelo.
Hey guys, is my mic okay?
You are good to
Yes,
go.
sir.
All right.
Yes.
I'm sure everybody in this group is completely happy that I was wrong before I left the show. So
There we go.
congratulations
Yes.
to
Be acknowledged.
Love it.
Congratulations to Alex for being undefeated. I'm glad that we somehow helped your team in actually doing what they're supposed to do. And now it's looking like with DeAndre Hopkins, I mean, what did I just witness on Monday night, man? It looked like Brady and Moss all over again. Jeez. So
It's pretty tight.
But barring
For my
injury, and
message.
you guys have Juju coming back, I honestly cannot see anyone beating that team. I mean, Detroit
You're
would
just
be
trying,
like
dude.
Detroit would
buttering
be
me
the
up at
most
this
fun,
point.
I guess, because
You're
the Lions
peacocking
are
me right now. I
Yeah.
don't appreciate it. All right.
so, and then yeah, Robert. I mean, shit, man. What can I say about Harbaugh? Oh, I will say this though. Whatever you were saying about Telesco, dude, you better take it back, because the one thing I know about that guy is he sure knows how to select players, man. Because we have 3 first-round picks that are all starting right now, and they sure look pretty good to me. So, and he came in not exactly like to scout a quarterback. So I hope that whichever quarterback he was thinking about while he was with the Chargers, he already has an idea of, because but knowing him and his process, because I mean, the one thing we can all say Telesco couldn't do is pick a good head coach. But man, can that guy put a roster together? So I'm happy with
You guys are 2-7.
yeah, no, I know. We just hired him, dude. Like we literally just hired him, and the fact that he already hit, and I don't even know how good Marion Richardson is yet, but he looked pretty good on the Bengals game too. I just want to see how everybody else looked. The only one pick I didn't like so far that he did is I didn't understand why he didn't take a chance on Tyrone Tracy. Stuart Schwaggart, who's a friend of our show and a good friend of mine, who played for the Raiders and was one of the best defensive players to ever come out of Purdue, told me on his podcast, like we were breaking down everything, and he was like, he went to the combine and he said, this Tyrone Tracy kid is the real deal. And if the Raiders have a chance to get him, you should go get him. And we did not. We picked Tommy Eichenberg. Woo!
Lube.
And good old fumbling Dylan Lobby. Woo! But again, man, we'll see what happens moving on to the future. But that was a big miss. And then yeah, Rich, like what can we really say about the Raiders other than we are 2-7 after 9 weeks? So,
Told you
but
your
a lot
quarterback
of the
wasn't going to be good.
A lot of the points you were bringing up, Rich, are all in the same discussions. Everybody goes over every single week. And for me, dude, you know what makes me different out of all of these people who just spend their time complaining about this or, oh, we suck or this, is because I'm looking towards the positive, man. First of all, what we know about the NFL is anyone can win at any given point. I mean, we just saw the Panthers beat New Orleans and finally got Dennis Allen fired, and the Panthers, you want to talk about a team that needs a reset. Man, that team definitely needs a reset. I look at a team like
not have a Raiders? Did that not have a Chargers Raiders feel to it though?
Oh man, that was
no. Like, did you not watch that as a Raiders fan and be like, I've totally seen this game before?
Oh my God.
Yeah. I mean, I would say that the hardest part for the Saints would be the fact that I don't know where they're going to get their money from, because they just keep renewing everyone and they keep kicking the can. So I have no idea how they're doing that. But again, when it comes to the Raiders, for me, dude, look, first of all, we went in with a rookie coach, right? And the rookie coach has a 2-year deal. So I say we just give him the 2 years and see what happens. Because I definitely think that this is just me, man. I look, first of all, the Raider fan base that woke up, that all of a sudden are like, yeah, let's go Raiders, woohoo! All showed up because AP rallied them all together. So you can talk about his inexperience and you can talk about maybe he doesn't. But the problem is, and this happens in every sporting fashion, name the sport, and if you keep doing this bullshit, it's going to happen to you over and over again. You can't keep rechanging everything until you give it a chance. And I don't think that we've honestly given a fair chance yet to AP because he wanted Jaden Daniels. Now, I get it. Telesco never trades up. I am even admitting that I was wrong because I didn't want to go that route. I was like, I don't want to give up 3 first-round picks for Jaden Daniels. But looking back at it, Rich, in hindsight, I would have happily given up 3 first-round picks. Looking at that, not just the kid's abilities, all right? And I would have wanted to protect the hell out of this kid. But his leadership, man, and how cool he is. He doesn't even get all too excited about the fact that he just threw a Hail Mary to win a very important game in his own hometown. You know, like everything that spells about him is exactly what AP said. Good character, great talent. The kid's ready to go. He's the real deal. So I can't even say that AP was wrong about that.
In my defense, I did tell you when you were with us repping your Raiders on this show, I felt Jaden Daniels was the second best, perhaps even top quarterback in this upcoming draft. I was pretty clear on that, actually, in terms of from my assessment. And I was told by you and others that I was probably wrong, and that's nothing new. But when you look at how he's panned out, he's got that certain it factor, and you saw it in college. He's got that kind of like, I'm willing to put the game on my shoulders kind of mentality, which at the NFL is almost a requirement as a quarterback. Like like you cannot win a game if you're a dude that's going to just like cower under the pressure. And let's be honest, the NFL is a pressure cooker, and that's being kind. Right. That's being, that's giving grace almost to the situation at the NFL level. Now, I agree with this. I guess what the bigger questions here, Angelo, getting back to some of my original kind of points there, kind of in the lead into you kind of, sliding in stage left here, which is the Raiders have some interesting decisions to make. And I think this is a fair. I'm not trying to be, way too early or any of that kind of stuff.
We have a whole second half left. We got either more games to lose or really screw this up and end up picking like number 13 again or something.
We had a very pivotal moment right now.
So obviously
the blue.
Right.
And come on back, Norv Turner, because you gave us that awesome four-win season. So let's keep the ball rolling, baby.
Yeah. The closest I get to the number 1 pick, the better, right? But the point, the question then becomes kind of what I was saying earlier, right? Which is you end up with these kind of 3 distinct interlinked buckets. And I don't know how else to describe it, right? Because they all balance one another out. And it's very, very critical that you, as a team, and frankly, look no further than the Chargers. So the Chargers themselves have a franchise quarterback who is underperforming under a coach that was trash, right? Now, the Raiders, in my opinion, I don't believe have a franchise quarterback on your roster right now, but I do believe.
I think that's everyone's opinion.
But I do believe.
I mean, unless Desmond Ridder becomes the great.
I don't know.
Russell Wilson.
Angelo told me that Aiden O'Connell was better than Russell Wilson. So
I still think that Aiden O'Connell has not gotten a fair chance. And to be fair,
actually agree.
I will continue to stick to that statement because you're seeing dumb things now already.
Hold on. Yeah. I'm about to give you the softball lob here because I agree actually with most of what you're saying. I actually agree. Aiden O'Connell is better than Russell Wilson, even still. I also believe that he has not been given a fair shake with the Raiders. I actually equate Aiden O'Connell to Drew Lock with my Denver Broncos to kind of balance it out.
That's a great
in
comparison.
Terms of, yeah, like
That's
if I'm going to balance it out, A versus B, and give
As
a reasonable
fan,
piece.
that's an insult to Drew Lock, dude. The guy
Sure.
has a cannon.
Yeah. No, Drew Lock, I think, could have actually been a much better quarterback if he wasn't completely screwed over by the team. And I think Aiden O'Connell has been put in a similar spot. Now, the kicker here is I kind of look at it as, you know, A, B, and C, and what is more important. And I think this is a great question for you. And then I'm super curious as to Alex and Robert's kind of opinion on this as well. So you have kind of A, B, and C. So A, do you have a quarterback? And if so, which one? Right? Because that matters. Like a Jaden Daniels is different from, say, like an Aiden O'Connell, right?
Yes.
Jaden Daniels has got like legs and mobility, and Aiden O'Connell's like, dude, I'm a pocket passer. Please put like a beast of an offensive line in front of me so I don't get killed.
Cleats.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. You know, he's basically he's basically a drunken giraffe, just like Peyton Manning was, right? When he's trying to run the ball. And so I think that's fair. Like I'm not trying to, you know, belittle your quarterback, but call a duck a duck. So you need your quarterback. That's kind of bucket A. Bucket B is, do you have the right head coach to implement the right culture and vision for your team? Right. And I'm sorry, that's a fair thing. That is like, look at Sean Payton with the Denver Broncos, look at Andy Reid with the Kansas City Chiefs, and you look at Harbaugh with the Chargers. And in fact, Harbaugh with the Chargers.
You got to put Tomlin in there too. Look at Tomlin.
Tomlin's a good example there as well, right? So you got the head coach and you got the quarterback. And then you kind of need the concept of the right offensive pieces to complement the quarterback, which I actually put in a separate bucket in and of itself, because, you know, you can have the right head coach, but if the head coach is handcuffed by a trash bag GM, you're done. Right. And so I don't like to necessarily put everything on the head coach if the franchise is not willing to give a wide enough berth effectively to the head coach to try to implement his vision appropriately. Right. And frankly, the GM needs to be present to facilitate the player personnel to meet the vision of the head coach. So if you want to run a power scheme, you better have linemen that can block in the power blocking scheme. You know, similarly, outside zone or inside zone. Those are different types of linemen as well. I'm sorry, like the zone blocking is not made equal depending on how you intend to run it.
100%.
And so all of those things matter. And so the question is, who do you have? Who do you want to target? And are you going to give the person the kind of the longevity in terms of making it happen? Now, to your point earlier, and then I'm going to throw over to you for your comments. AP was given a 2-year deal, and you said no to Kingsbury for a 3-year deal. So it's clear to me that you guys see AP as a, geez, I hope he works. Okay, right?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
I'm sorry. It's just
this isn't our money, Rich, right? Like at the end of the day, this is Mark Davis's money. Okay. So let's put it in our perspective. Let's say it was our money. All right. So if I'm in Mark Davis's shoes and it was my money, I just spent a boatload of money on John Gruden, who, you know, email comes out. Now I got to, because of whatever, I got to put it all out when I was ready to give this guy a 10-year reign like Tomlin. Then to fix the problem, right? Let me go ahead and do the Patriot way, because I don't know anything about football. I just got a ton of money. So let me go with that guy. That guy's a genius. He won with Tom Brady. And people, again, I have to always go back to this. The whole plan back then was to get Tom Brady to come. He did not come. Even Tom Brady was like, you're picking this fucking guy over me? Even Tom Brady was ready to come. He was mad, right? So that was the plan. Plan botched again. I don't want to place blame. It is this man's money. He can do whatever the hell he wants with whoever the hell he wants with whatever money he's got. So I believe that when he did the 2-year deal across the board, pretty much for a whole lot of people, he was saying to himself, I'm tired of bleeding money to coaches that I can't even keep for the duration of a contract. So let me just go ahead and do a 2-year contract, even if he wanted to give AP a 3-year deal. Now, my theory with the Cliff Kingsbury thing is Kingsbury came and he was like, well, I'll do the job, but I need to know that I'm going to get a chance to have 3 years to work with this. And while the Raiders were busy thinking about that bullshit, instead, he was like, oh shit, Jaden Daniels wants me? I'm in. And boom, there he goes, right? And then right now, what is everyone talking about? Everyone is talking about how Cliff Kingsbury is such a genius, and that's who the next head coach for the Chicago Bears should be, because that's what Caleb Williams needs, right? Clearly, we already know that if you're good at offensive coordinating, a la Josh McDaniels, you should fucking stick to offensive coordinating, because the guy that's leading the Arizona Cardinals right now, Rich, he doesn't look that bad to me. That guy's in his fucking second year, and he doesn't exactly have the greatest team that's been built yet. I think that's a guy who, because he's been being given a fair chance, it's not necessarily going to be his career is going to be destined by Kyler Murray.
But that's my point though. That's a vision that you're looking for from a head coach, right? So that's why I said there's 3 buckets. You need to have the roster to facilitate the vision that you've laid out before you, and that's on the GM to execute. You need to have the head coach, and then you need to have the quarterback, because I'm sorry, the quarterback is basically the linchpin of most teams. There's almost never been a team, almost ever, that I can think of, with the exception of 2, just off the top of my head, that has had a mediocre quarterback that has actually won them a Super Bowl. And the only exception to those rules are when you have a defense that is so fire, literally on fire.
Trent Dilfer, Joe Flacco, Ravens. Even Denver. Denver defense.
Well, no, Denver.
To Joe Flacco's credit, though, he did play out of his mind in the playoffs. Trent Dilfer, nah.
Look, just because a dude decided to do drugs and figure out how to play football, that's really besides the point. With Joe Flacco, Peyton Manning knew what he was doing. His physical skill sets, though, were so diminished because of the hand issues that he had as a result of some of his injuries. He just wasn't able to do some of the same things he was able to do before. But the problem is, not the problem, but the benefit is that it was so automatic for him that he could fake a lot of it and do it at such a high level that even his bottom of the barrel at that point of his career was top half of the league. That's how when you're that good, when you fall that far, that's where you fall too. And frankly, Mahomes is going to be of a similar ilk of Peyton Manning. I'm just being honest, is that his worst game is going to be mid of the league, and you're going to be like, what's gone on? But let's be real, 90% of the league would take Mahomes at that state than their quarterback likely anyway. So, call a duck a duck. So, Angelo, with that in mind, so here's the Raiders scenario. Do you bring in the head coach and then target the quarterback? So do you fire AP midseason and just say, it is what it is, let's try to, see what we have, and kind of go from there? And the reason why I say that is because another head coach or a vision or whatever could potentially give you some insight onto your players that you're going to say, AP's not bringing it out of them. We actually need to know what we have on the roster.
So here's the thing, right? So just, again, to be fair, this is just to be fair to AP, okay? I'm going to defend the guy because defense, okay, so he comes in as an interim. He has the locker room. So he's got that Dan Campbell type feel, right? In fact, he's so good at the defense part that he is playing rookies and parts like Chason and Snowden. And with him and Patrick Graham together, we're still number 11. on defense, right? So when people say we don't have a good defense, I promise you right now, if fucking 4 games ago, Rich, Matthew Stafford came along and we traded whatever to go get him, I bet you we wouldn't be 2-7 because a lot of those games we lost were all very winnable all up until fumble, interception, whatever. So we got to call a spade a spade. We can't sit there and go, well, the entire team sucks. No, we don't. And in fact, I've said this on record several times on everybody's show that I don't know if any team has ever done this like the way they do it in basketball, but Max Crosby
but here's the thing.
Player. Okay?
Yeah,
and since Max Crosby's our star player, I even said to Stu, like, when we were doing drafting, I'm like, has any GM ever thought in their heads, what if we surround our main defensive player and then we go with that? I still believe that that's kind of AP's thing is it's all about Max. Max is only 27. He's holding it down on the defensive end. And it just so happens, in fact, like, just think about it this way, okay? Our offense sucks so bad that our defense is still playing like I mean, name the game. Like, name the fucking game, dude. It doesn't matter if it was the Bengals or the Chiefs game at home or you name it. The defense was still trying to keep us in it, fully knowing in their heads. Offense is probably going to turn the ball over, guys.
Yeah, but here's the thing.
You know what? We're going to keep going.
But here's
now, again, I say that to say this. And if you want to talk, Raph, I'll let you go. But I say that to say this, Rich. You can't fire a head coach who's literally overperforming in terms of motivation. Because if there was ever
2-7, what is overperforming? What are you talking about?
Shut the fuck up for a second.
I mean, this is something that I was saying.
Robert, you got to shut the fuck up. Thank you.
Dude, he's not going to break his win total from last season.
In terms of, Robert, unless you've actually coached athletes in your life like I have,
oh my God.
Right now, it's extremely difficult to actually make people do something when they're getting ready to quit.
Well, Jim Harbaugh seems pretty good at it.
Good as a head coach that he hasn't let the defense quit. He's still, and to Patrick Graham's credit, Rich, I'm talking to you. To Patrick Graham's credit, I don't know how good of a head coach he would be yet because we haven't seen it. But man, that fucking guy is a genius as a defensive coach and how to put it together. So again, I'm trying to defend what AP is in charge of. And what he is in charge of is he's supposed to be the CEO of this team, to which I think when you have a team that has one side of the company be fucking a bunch of people who are either should already been fired, like a Getsy, or never even hired, and then another side who's actually overperforming. They are. Okay, I don't care. Yeah, like, chat, you can tell me I'm fucking crazy.
So Angelo,
Chase hold
on.
Like, all of these people that are just parts. They're not
Angelo,
even a regular defense. Come on. Like fucking Robert sitting there like I'm crazy. How are we ranked number 11 when we've already lost
season?
Epps, we've lost Kuntz, we've lost Wilkins. We're still 11? How are we 11? We should be getting blown out. We should be scoring on us like crazy.
Hold on. So Angela, I'm going to throw over to Robert and Alex here, but this is the general consensus. So this is kind of where I kind of see things coming from. What I've seen from my Broncos with a defensive-minded head coach that had their defense playing in the upper echelon, despite the fact that the rest of the team sucked. Right. Like, I actually think the Broncos are actually a reasonable analogy or something to kind of look towards as a benchmark. So Vic Fangio. So let's look at Vic Fangio. Now, no offense to AP. AP is nowhere near Fangio.
Not even close.
Not even.
I don't think it's gonna be like even close.
Not even close.
No.
Not even close to anything.
No. But my point here is, your defense is playing in the 11th percentile, right? In terms of, like, you look at the totality of the league, you have 32 teams, and you're currently ranked 11. Cool, great. All right. However, the problem that you have is that you don't know if that's your head coach contributing to the defense or if it's just your defensive coordinator, right? The CEO of the team is either tasked with being the CEO of the entire team or not. Now, I actually have some very, very credible information with regards to my Denver Broncos, and I don't know if you have the same for the Raiders in this regard. So I'm not going to lean one way or another. And then, Robert, I want to go over to you, which is, and then Alex, I want you to go next, which is, I know for a fact that Vic Fangio was brought in, and he was told that he was not going to need to actually manage the offensive side of the ball. He was told that he was going to be the head coach.
Yeah.
Okay.
But there's one thing.
No. So, Raph, hold on. So Vic Fangio was brought in, and he was told that he was going to be the head coach of the team, but they wanted him to completely revamp the defense to bring them back up to the tier where they were at before. And he did just that, clearly. Okay. We're top 5, top 6 the entire time he was here. Now, is AP, has he been given that same latitude? Has he been told that the only thing he needs to focus on is the defense? My vantage point from the Broncos side of things, or the outside looking in, is he has not been tasked with only managing the defense. He has been tasked with managing the entirety of the team. At which point, why did it take you 9 games in, or 10 weeks in, or whatever you want to look at it as, to say, dude, your offense has been putrid. Why have you not made major changes up until this point in the season? You should have made, as the leader of men and as the leader of the team, and you're saying, like, doing all these great things, he has clearly missed the mark on the offensive side of the ball. Obviously, the defense is doing well, so that's his, I'm clinging on for dear hope. At least my defense is looking decent. So, Robert, with that in mind, when we look at what your Chargers were like last year, you were the exact opposite in some regards, where your coach was a defensive dude. Your defense sucked. No offense. But they did. Okay. Yeah, right? Like they did. Okay. Call a duck a duck. Okay. And your head coach was a defensive guy. That's what he was known for. And so he didn't have the thing to hang on to like AP does right now. That being said, though, you also didn't have a particularly good defensive coordinator on your team compared to, say, a Graham, who the Raiders have as well. And Graham has 2 different regimes to show that he has a through line of showing that his defenses can succeed. So with that in mind, kind of to maybe shatter Angelo's worldview a little bit here, no offense, which is, you've seen this happen for your Chargers. A head coach that is competent, that can bring in a culture shift and perhaps maintain that defensive side of the ball. Would you not try to perhaps convince Angelo that it's maybe time to show AP the door and maybe move on to a more competent head coach?
And again, can I, before you answer that, can I again fucking remind everybody that even dumbass head coach of the Chargers, who finally got fired, got more latitude than what everybody's giving AP. All I said, Rich, was I didn't say renew AP's contract. I said he has 1 year left. So, he has 1 year left.
No, but I am more in Rodgers and Bolt Bros and other guys' camp by saying I actually think that the other guy should have gone.
But so, I think there's
over to you, Robert. Over to you, Robert, in terms of your thought process on this. Alex, we'll go to you, and then we need to get some other trades around the division as well, because there was a couple that occurred. So, Robert, your thoughts on the Raiders coaching shift and whether where you kind of think they should be?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's to compete in this division, you need a head coach and you need a quarterback. There is no ifs, ands, ors, or buts about it. So what are you doing in the meantime when you don't have that? You're just wasting talent that you have on your team right now. If you give AP the rest of this season and the additional season next year, that's another year of Max Crosby gone. That's another year of Christian Wilkins. Like, you're just adding on to this defense that's not going to be the same in 2 years. And even then, let's say you do find, like, obviously we're hoping in the division not, but let's say you do find that perfect head coach and quarterback pairing. it's still going to take time to develop. And by that time, your defense will be way over with. So I just feel like you can't have your cake and eat it too. It's either you got to fully commit to the rebuild and just trade your star players away, not your pillars.
Yeah, damn it.
No, God, no,
not gonna happen.
I knew that would trigger. I knew that would trigger.
But trade away your star players. You know, not Crosby. Don't trade away your pillars of the franchise. Obviously, if Crosby wants to retire a Raider, let him. But you gotta either commit. You either gotta, which obviously you show you didn't want to commit to going in because you would have gotten out and you would have went out and gotten a quarterback last year. You stuck with
but here's the thing. I mean, Robert. I mean, here's one thing about for like good like Getsy. I mean, he should be like really fired because that was like the most dog shit play calling and whatever just said it about it. I mean, at some point, some persons they had the nerve to defend Luke Getsy. He has nothing to work with it because that man called straight vanilla runs up in the fucking middle between for that game against Kansas City Chiefs against for a fucking stacked boss because everyone knows that play calling was a piece of dog shit. I mean, he just run for the ball with every single second and run every time.
No one is arguing that Luke Getsy's play calls and run play calls are genius or anything along those lines.
This is about AP.
What we are saying. No, hold on. Whoa. But what we are saying is this, which is if you are the CEO and owner of a company or meant to run the show, which AP is meant to be, right? That's the point. You need to look at the dude that's running the vanilla play calls and vanilla runs and not scheming to the strengths of your team. Like, let's put it this way. You have some speed at the wide receiver position.
Yeah.
I'm going to call the Raiders from what I've seen them so far. You have speed at the wide receiver position, which you should be able to exploit, but can't. You have an offensive line that has certain guys that are actually playing out of position, but are overall not great. Okay. You need to retool and rearrange it to see who actually fits where, and then play that for the rest of the season. Understand that you're going to still struggle because they're still not great, and just simply own it. Right. Okay. Yeah, cool. We agree with that. Right. And then the third issue is you then need to scheme using the players that you have on your roster to maximize your potential success. Now, can Getsy do that? The answer is no. Hell will freeze over before that happens.
No, that's not going to happen.
But AP is meant to be the CEO. I'm a fanalist. I'm a dude from Canada that happens to know quite a bit about football, and I can see that on the field. I'm not paid $1 million or $2 million a year to coach an NFL football team. And I could have told you that after watching week 2 and 3. Okay.
Yeah, right.
I'm sorry. This is not rocket science. This is not a difficult concept. It's just not.
But there is a thing. We understand that Kansas City Chiefs are the top run defense. But look between for the Getsy, he keeps trying to run against him. I mean, instead of using the pass to maybe open the run, Getsy is not like the guy who ensures like to get like the top one. And before the for like the tight end. Because one complaint that I just heard about it, because Getsy wanted to give use to like for Clark Brooks. I mean, between Jacoby and Myers is pretty good at the wide receiver position. And it seems that Brock Bowers could be used effectively that way for the slot as well. So it's not happening to make it at the offense home because we all did his weapons. So they'll be like extremely disappointed. But between for Aiden and Connor, means very smart, accurate, but I don't care. That's sort of field weaknesses at all. But they should be looking at coming out everything quick. But
I hope this gets great, this is hilarious.
But I know there's gonna be like a lot of problems. But after that, it's just fire to look Getsy. But why the persons never care about for like one person for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers? I know that Tom Brady is a minor owner.
But Raph, you're kind of missing my point. You're missing my point.
So
AP's
let me just add
AP's
this. AP's
job is to manage the team.
Yeah, you can get to, so all I was going to say to Robert was this, right? Like I understand. All I was trying to say is I honestly do not feel, just like I don't feel Aiden O'Connell got a fair shot. I do not feel he got a fair shot this year. I'm going to stick to that shit because I still believe he is better than Russell Wilson college stats wise. So All I was saying is the shit show that is the Raiders is because someone keeps tiptoeing around the hard decisions, Rich. And the hard decision is this. And I'm hoping that Telesco can Kevin Costner this bitch and be like Draft Day the movie and say, I'm in charge. And I'm going to get us linemen, which is what we need. I'm going to take the $100 million that we have, and I'm going to get us like, who's the free agents that are the linemen that we can get right now that's going to help right now?
Right? I just want to remind you, when you guys signed Christian Wilkins for what, $100 million, I think you reminded me that no one would be able to do anything on that defensive line. I understand he got hurt. Yeah, it was pretty
good, actually, when Christian Wilkins was
I understand he got hurt, but throwing money at players is not the solution for the situation that they're in.
I'm not throwing, listen, okay, hold on.
I hear what you're saying. Okay, but we've been talking about this for 56 minutes.
Hold on.
No, you've had enough time to get your point across.
I'm trying to explain to you what the $100 million needs to go to.
2 offensive linemen. I get it. Yeah, you said it. I got it.
Yes, because
so why didn't he do that last year? Why did he spend it?
We fucking have the greatest quarterback of all time. If we had Jane Daniels, you know what would have happened to Jane Daniels? He would have ended up like Robert Griffin.
And before you cut me off, that's what I was saying. That's not the situation the Raiders are in. You can't patch it by bringing in veterans that have been solidified in other lineups.
I get it.
You got to accept.
But I also
you got it. No. Hey, I let you go. I let you go. I totally let me get my damn point out there.
You're going to win another Super Bowl.
Why don't we switch to the only relevant team right now that's undefeated? Why don't we talk about that?
We can if you want to.
I would like to. I'm not a Raiders fan.
So with that in mind, I think there's a general consensus in the panel.
That's right, bitches.
Which is,
I don't know what my consensus is. I don't know what we discussed.
Alex was basically saying, build your offensive line.
I haven't got anything out.
Protect your quarterback, and then when you bring in a quarterback, they're not going to get killed. And that's basically what the Kansas City Chiefs did, and now they're winning. Call it.
Okay, yeah. If I was able to get my whole spiel out, that's what I would have gotten to. That's the problem today, is that people expect immediate turnaround without understanding where they're actually, how their team is currently constructed. Like, look at Detroit and how they slow burn built up, and now look at them. Same thing with Kansas City. I mean, they slow burn built their roster up and let Reed continue to improve year in and year out without any media coverage of if he's getting fired, and things worked out. I mean, that's the way you got to do it. You can't just say, oh, let's spend $100 million on offensive linemen to protect O'Connell and, we'll be 8-8. Like, no, you gotta hard sell it, and you gotta understand that you gotta bring the coach in and let it build.
Yeah. And Alex, let me agree with you. So let's talk about Dan Campbell and when he took over and they gave him a chance. How many wins did he get in the first 2 years of his?
Yeah, it wasn't good.
Didn't he win like 8 games
per
season?
So how come he gets more latitude when he's exactly like what AP is?
Because he improved the season after.
Because he's with a better owner that doesn't expect immediate turnaround, that understands I've been bad for so long. That's what Ed said. I mean, I agree with that. It's a problem with ownership. Panthers owner, same thing. Like, he expects, I'm going to get this quarterback that won the Heisman, and we're going to be 10-7 and in the playoffs. It doesn't work that way. Like, it just doesn't.
Yeah, but here's the thing about it, because I know that some former players at the NFL doesn't have the same lucky. Because if you're talking about Dan Campbell, it's true, because he's a very guy for a very personality as a Conley, because all for those players on that team, he seems to share the same opinion as well as some other fans, because they're kind of simply a bit of the better team that get arguably lost due to bad coaching. And another Antonio Pierce, it seems that some come in and say, oh, he only smokes cigars, he drops in the Impala, but take it a lot of time to see, because the blueprint, it's not that very easy to hang it around, because there are successful head coaches that have made worse decisions with even more experience, and they won championship. I'm not saying that it's even going to win us a ring, because they're able putting it down right now. But it doesn't mean like it's exactly to be kick it out right now, because if you're talking about for Dan Campbell, he has already made contributions to excellent offense. Because it seems they had a great special teams, excellent locker room culture, great staff, because he has already done for a lot of this team. Because if we want to rebuild that team, we got to learn that Barry, but not that very fast. We're going to grow out just like it a little bit. We have to fill it out with young talent, because we're not going to lose out of that game for more than 4 points. But if we get like a talented young team and we're going to face the growing pains, we've been seeing like a lot of this over the 1,000 years, but especially compared with another coach with an entire life. But I'm not thinking we're going to show fire Antonio Pierce. That's not even true, because I'm certainly wondering if the people just wanted to go and issue with them, or they're going to learn to grow on it. Because that's exactly what they thought of the other fans. Because I believe if they want to meet with Antonio Pierce, if they want to see like very young with a ball player and head coaching, they need a lot of mentality and leadership. That's not going to be like it easy from night to morning. I mean, it's not going to be very emotional, because if he needs to target a good game, but he had to look at it, everything out of the sides of the sideline. Because funny how they came for the one terrible decision while ignoring over the play calling. Did it screw up with the last decision? I don't think so, because he wasn't that perfect in all that is close. No, it was perfect, dog. And all of the decisions go for it, like close 4 downs, put in a position with ultimately cost that game. But if you need to acknowledge it was a really good spot, that final costly mistake.
Hey, can I say this too, Rich? Because we were to your original point. Robert, you had Telesco. So does Telesco trade up to go get a quarterback?
No.
Okay, so now that he said that, one of the most ridiculous things I just saw today on social media is Raiders are going to pick 6, and then they're going to get Nussmeier from LSU. And I was sitting there saying to myself, that's the stupidest thing that somebody could put out there, because there's only really 2 quarterbacks that you might want to take in this upcoming draft, and in those first 5 rounds, right? And one of them happens to be Shedeur Sanders, who Tom Brady trained, and everybody is already falling in love with him. I don't know, man. I haven't done enough research yet, but that's what they're saying. The other one is I watched this Cam Ward guy somehow come back from Cal, and I'm like,
he's the beast.
That fucking guy's pretty good. Like, he doesn't suck, right? So other than that, and Alex, you might agree with me on this one. Other than that, man, I don't want to take a quarterback in the first round, because the rest of them to me are like, they're not going to get protected. They're going to get hammered, and it's going to be fucking terrible. Why would I want a quarterback in the first round? You know who I did see, though, that was getting hammered, and I saw it with my own eyes live, is a kid by the name of Ashton Genty. And that motherfucker, worst case scenario, we take him in the first round, we're selling tickets, because that guy is a highlight reel. Right? That's our worst case scenario. Okay? Because I saw another projection.
Angelo, we're going to move past the Raiders.
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
The Raiders now, just because there are 3 other teams in the division that we do need to cover. Obviously, the Raiders had the biggest news this week. My Denver Broncos, there's 2 kind of big things, in my opinion, that kind of occurred this week for my Denver Broncos. And then I'm going to throw over to Alex, and then Robert will close out the kind of trades and news and that kind of stuff. One, my Denver Broncos traded Baron Browning. He's an outside linebacker. He, in my opinion, was better suited as an inside linebacker. He had that sideline to sideline capability, and was excellent actually under Vic Fangio as an inside linebacker. He converted his speed to outside linebacker, was actually getting a great win rate at the outside linebacker position, but has struggled with injuries. We traded him to the Arizona Cardinals for a 6th-round draft pick. And I think that was a pretty good trade given his injury history. So I think George Payton did pretty well in that trade overall. So good for him. Outside linebacker is a premium position, and despite injury, if you take out the injury concerns away from Browning, his general metrics and stats were actually very high. So some guys actually, when they move away from Denver in the thin air that exists within Denver, Colorado, their bodies are able to adjust better. And so it'll be very interesting to see if Browning is one of those guys where moving away from the thin air is able to kind of bounce him back. Now, the other thing that I think is important to point out, which is, who was it? Was it Cool Kev, I think, that mentioned my prediction where I thought we were going to beat the Ravens. After losing to the Ravens in rather spectacular fashion this past week, my Denver Broncos, I actually thought would be more aggressive sellers than they were. I actually thought that was a bit of a recalibration, in my opinion, of what should have been for my Denver Broncos as a team. And yes and no. I mean, he's been hurt most of the year. I disagree with that because we have Ellis that's actually outplayed Browning because he's been on the field more. And you're going to want a younger guy to get more reps on the field, especially if you're not seeing as big of a drop off as you would otherwise expect. So I agree.
Chance, though, Rich.
What?
From what he's saying, Broncos do have a chance still. You believe that, right?
Depends on what your definition of chance is.
Yeah, but Richie,
you don't think they could sneak into that last play, that 7th spot?
Yeah, we can sneak in and then get absolutely slaughtered in the first round. But is that really what you want as for your team? Like for me, no. I have a standard of excellence for my Broncos, which we have typically had over the years, and what I am seeing right now is not that standard. We are recovering from the John Elway era still of bad draft picks and overpaying for free agents. And what we're seeing right now is guys like Garrett Bowles, who got their second contract, who basically, their idea of blocking was grabbing a dude's jersey and just not letting go. That is a holding penalty by every metric in the NFL. But you need guys that are technique driven. You need guys that are, steering your ship in a singular direction overall. And so we need guys that are up to that standard. And the Denver Broncos currently don't have as many of those guys as we need on the roster to be successful. So the Russell Wilson trade, which, could have been better if he wasn't straight trash. I was never a fan of the Russ trade. I actually wanted Aaron Rodgers overall. I still maintain that he would have been a better fit for the Denver Broncos in the scheme that we run. Russell Wilson was never utilized properly and frankly was lying to the league in terms of what he could do as a skill set, and then got a contract that he didn't deserve because he didn't prove that he deserved it. He got it ahead of the trade, which is just ridiculous in terms of before the season started. So there's a whole bunch of mistakes. There's a whole bunch of mistakes that were made by my Denver Broncos, but ultimately, as a result of those mistakes, you need to course correct. So you need to then free up those mistakes from your cap so that you can reset your team and get your team back on track. So guys like Garrett Bowles, Justin Simmons. I like Justin Simmons as a guy, as a person off the field. He is a Mount Rushmore style type guy. He is a volunteer within the community. He does a bunch of charity work, and he does a lot of it actually without actually expecting recognition for it, which is the sign of a gentleman who actually has true character. That does not change the fact that he plays football selfishly. And you cannot do that at the NFL level. That might work in college, but it does not work at the NFL level because you need to fit within a scheme. So I would have liked to have seen the Broncos actually trade away a few extra players. So I would have liked to have seen Garrett Bowles get traded away for some draft capital to a team that needed a left tackle that may have overpaid for what we would otherwise get for him in the offseason. I would have liked to have seen perhaps someone like Javonte Williams get traded, who I think, while he's done well for my Denver Broncos, is clearly not part of our future. He has shown up well these last few games, but Estime is clearly going to be the guy that they're looking to potentially replace Javonte Williams. So it's his time. Like, it's literally his time at this point. So just Put him in there, see what he does, make a decision. I'd like to see my Denver Broncos kind of start cutting more ties to that John Elway draft pick regime and moving forward with the Sean Payton picks to see where we're at.
Yeah, but Richie, I mean, here's the thing, because I just need one question. I just need one question. So I know the Denver Broncos, it became like some surprisingly, but you see your mind because you actually brought like a lot of spark and energy for Bo Nix. But I think that Bo Nix, I mean, he needs to improve like his accuracy and the footwork, because the good news for them, I mean, he's already doing like his baseball. I mean, that combination of athleticism of Bo Nix and the pocket awareness is frankly weird, but they give him like a star potential. I mean, does he keep like very improving and picking off at like a more like a Sean Payton offense, and they have like a guy, but how does that mean that Bo Nix became like a more like pocket awareness? What most impressive about like doing like a chemistry along with the Denver Broncos, along for like the team of Sean Payton?
So you bounced around a little bit there. There's two questions rolled into one, but ultimately, Bo Nix's pocket awareness is lacking. That was my concern all along. I have not been shy in saying that on the show. Robert and Alex can attest to that. I mean, I was not the start Bo Nix
better
right
than
away.
Anthony Richardson, Rich.
Gee, yeah, that's a tough hill to climb. God, come on. That's like an anthill at best. So when you look at Bo Nix, look, he has progressed faster than I thought he would. The quarterback position at the NFL level is easily the hardest to traverse from college to the NFL, not even close. I would actually argue that Justin Herbert is in a similar position to where Bo Nix is in terms of when he came into the league. No one expected Justin Herbert to look as good as he did when he came into the league, period. No one. Everyone was saying, why would you pick that guy? And now I don't think anyone is questioning the fact that he is a franchise quality quarterback. I see Bo Nix as a similar kind of scenario to where Justin Herbert was. Herbert played well, but not well enough to be the guy. Bo Nix is playing well, but not playing well enough to be the guy. I kind of see the kind of two in a similar, plus or minus a little bit here and there, arm strength versus whether it be pocket awareness or calling the right play or whatever the case may be. There's a whole bunch of different verticals within at the NFL level. Herbert is not as good as Nix at certain things, and Herbert is way better than Nix at other things. So, I mean, like, you can kind of nitpick at the various components of their game. Now, ultimately, what it comes down to, and I will say it, and I've said it before, I will say it again, and I will say it again until the Denver Broncos finally fix the bloody problem. In order for you to fix your team, you need to have an offensive line when you bring in a rookie quarterback or even a decent quarterback. You have to be able to block, you have to be able to keep them upright, and you have to give them the time to read the field. The Denver Broncos have a good but not great offensive line. They need a great offensive line in order to allow a rookie quarterback to succeed. That is ultimately what the problem is. Garrett Bowles needs to go. Our right tackle, Pazlowski, was a good right tackle, but he gets hurt all the time, and you need a permanent guy that is not finding his way to the medical tent. You need him to find his way onto the green grass and stay on the field. And in addition to that, you need an offensive center because that is the quarterback of your offensive line. Denver's centers this year suck.
But at least they're not Cushenberry, right?
Cushenberry had one good year, and he got a contract out of it, and he is not as good as he was with the Denver Broncos now. And at the end of the day, 1 year to me does not warrant that contract extension. He did not progress. Like, if Cush progressed year over year and got to where he was, I would have had a different opinion. Cushenberry sucked, and then in his last year played well. To me, that's a kick him to the curb.
Undefeated.
Yeah, undefeated contract year. Bye, Felicia. And so I kind of see that as the answer to that question. So in order to have a rookie quarterback, in my opinion, you need an offensive line to protect him, to allow him to read the field, and then you can then add on to your team. I look at what the Kansas City Chiefs did. We've touted them a couple times in this show. Patrick Mahomes came in to a stellar offensive line because they already had a couple guys, and then they ended up seeking their bookend tackles in either that draft or that draft in the year prior. And they had a great team in front of Patrick Mahomes. And then he comes in and he's like, here, I'll give you a cherry on top, and how's a couple Super Bowls? Right? This is what they did.
A few Super Bowls, but it's fine.
Oh, sorry, only two.
More than a couple.
Cry me a river. No, but that's the thing, right? Like he has gotten them to the promised land more than once and more than twice, and he's really put the Kansas City Chiefs on the map as the premier team in the NFL level at the NFL now, with the moves that the Chiefs have done. And I think that's the blueprint if you're going to be successful. Moving on, Alex.
Real quick, Alex, if Andy Reid does actually win the Super Bowl this year in a three-peat, the way they're going, whether they end up being undefeated or not, which is a very strong possibility given the rest of their schedule.
I don't know about that.
But would you then say that Andy Reid is better than Bill Belichick as greatest?
I mean, yeah, I may say that bias, yeah. And I mean, I don't know if the stats would nearly.
He took two teams to the Super Bowl, man. He took two.
No, I mean, and just I think to some degree, yeah, like you said, if he does be the first team to three-peat and let alone do it undefeated, I don't think they're going to go undefeated. I would imagine.
Who do you see beating them, man? Because
probably the Bills. I'm watching Buffalo and maybe Denver. I think they split with one of these.
Oh my gosh, Rich, do you think
Denver beat them last year?
Yes.
Rich, do you think Denver could beat them this year?
Yes, I do.
They've always. I mean, AFC West and hold on. Close. I mean, Raiders won last year. I know you remember that.
It's defense.
Yeah, the defense.
It comes up to defense. If look at what the Ravens were able to do to the Broncos on the defensive side of the ball. They just had the right defense to nullify any offensive attack that my Broncos had against the Ravens this past week. And the right team with the right grouping and personnel grouping can nullify a great quarterback. I mean, Vic Fangio, let's put this in perspective. Vic Fangio kept Patrick Mahomes in every game that he was the head coach to less than 15 points.
He's not there though, but
but we won. But sorry, we did that, and we only won last year despite those stats being true. Why? Our offense sucked, right? Whereas what we saw last year with Sean Payton
is we had to apologize, Jack. You either die a hero or you live long enough to see yourself become the villain. Okay.
All right, Harvey.
But yeah, no, I mean, I think you got to put Reid up there if that does happen. But like I said, I don't see him going undefeated. But I mean, as things have gone,
the only saving grace for me is that I do want to see the Chiefs they got to go all the way. They got to run the table. Because after this year, you can already see it from every NFL team that's nipping at the heels. And then you got tier teams below that, like the Chargers, who are going to be nipping at the heels. So their time is coming, man. Taylor Swift is about to marry Travis. So they might as well they got a Hallmark movie, for crying out loud, coming out about those two that the Kansas City Chiefs is somehow a part of. I mean, look, dude. It's just I'm already done. I'm already looking at draft choices, right? I'm already but everything else. So yeah.
So Alex,
but no, I would put Andy Reid as the greatest of all time, man.
Yeah, I'm with that. I can get on board with that. But yeah, so
trades.
Really no. Well, I mean, they didn't make any other moves past the trades I talked about last week.
Got Uchi.
Yeah. Well, I talked about that last week because it happened last week. And he did play in the Monday night game and already made his presence known in the defense. So, I mean, as evidence, really in that Monday night game, both the moves they made were perfect for the situation they were in.
Yep.
I mean, D-Hop 2 games into it, really first game fully into.
And Kelsey looks like a different person now.
Yeah, well, I mean, as I've said on the show, I think that's the product of D-Hop. opening things up, because really Kelce wasn't gone or lost any of his eliteness. It's just every defense was counting two guys to any place he was at. And I mean, like I said, D-Hop is kind of the wide receiver version of Kelce in that he doesn't really run routes. He assesses what the defense has given him and finds a soft spot. And I mean, that's pretty proven right on Monday night. As the one Mahomes threw into triple coverage at a buffet line, and granted, perfect ball placement, but D-Hop caught it. And I don't know that there's any other receiver on this team that makes that type of play. So
but
Alex, he's going to be pretty good now as a complementary to that whole group.
Yeah,
and they got Worthy too.
And you got Xavier Worthy, who, I mean, would have had a touchdown had he realized he's not in college. But I mean, for a rookie, it's notoriously hard for a rookie to be productive in an Andy Reid offense, but he's coming along pretty quickly and almost weekly. Part of that was necessity, but you got to think, yeah.
But Alex, I got to tell you about this one, because we all know that the Kansas City Chiefs, they got the best quarterback, they got the best coach. Also, when you're talking about for DeAndre Hopkins, I mean, did you forget that he's on the last year for this deal and he passes general prime? Because not only they just really to one for the Kansas City Chiefs for a long time, because it all depends how the season's going up there, because you guys of the Chiefs are going undefeated, but it comes to the habit of fans like they're talking about a little discussion about how prime, how I like this DeAndre Hopkins. But if he balls out like the rest of the year, then you're not get any younger unless he wants to stay them. Take a look at the team friendly is gonna be like an elite throwback anyway. But I know his contract with his Titans was only 2 years for $26 million. So that could be like an absolutely massive. He continues to place well. But also he's after the perfect age to chase rings or maybe like legacies, but he could be well like to tell you how town this come, but it will be like a more difficult about for his career for DeAndre Hopkins. But I'm not very familiar as to the wide receivers contracts, but I checked it out for the Adam Taylor for another team. It's a reference for 3 years, but some here, some cow, but I don't think that the Chiefs will carry him. And quite frankly, I don't think it's doing well. But he looks like he's slowly being like a uniform for like the Kansas City Chiefs. But if he balls out, he really gets over the standards. But he has never had a wide receiver that it could runs like that with those hands. I mean, that makes it interesting. Look at this little factor. I mean, perhaps in between for that game against Tampa Bay Buccaneers, I mean, they're helping they can't pay the salary. They only get to him, but he only decides to take a pay cut to chase only one win. But does Kelce have the 135? Of course, it only depends on how much he wants to go for that team.
Yeah. No, I mean, I'm not acting like DeAndre Hopkins is a long-term solution. I don't think, frankly, that the Chiefs looked at it that way either. It was more about make the all-in moves to. I mean, because obviously the goal is to be the first team to three-peat, so you got to make the all-in moves to get to that point, and that's the types of moves that they made. Bring in Hopkins, knowing he's either going to come back on some kind of veteran scale deal or go get a fourth bag somewhere else. But I think that there's some weight to be had to the fact that he is aging, and I mean, this is like the first time in his career he's had a good QB, and you could tell. I mean, in his post-game interviews, damn near in tears, just like realizing, like, damn, I'm on the Chiefs and not in Tennessee, and I'm catching balls from Mahomes and not Will Levis. And Kelce's aging, so that's why they had to make the moves to keep the status quo and make that realistic shot at the three-peat. Because I mean, I know I've said it multiple times, but what other team that has lost their number one running back, lost their number one wide receiver, well, number one and number two wide receiver, lost one of their edge rushers, gave up their number one corner the year prior and lost another corner and are still undefeated and the only undefeated. I mean, that's what elite teams do. And then they make the moves that they know they got to make to keep the status quo. And that's I mean, that's what D-Hop
Kareem
was.
Hunt's amazing, by the way, dude. He's in my fantasy team.
Alex,
so thank you.
Oh yeah, big dude. Kareem Hunt, by going into overtime and scoring a touchdown, won me the game. Is it?
Alex, it's actually more than that. Your team is able to bring in veterans and have them play for vet minimums that would have otherwise commanded higher salaries from other teams, simply because your team is not only competitive, because that's just the baseline for some of these veterans to move on to other teams, but your team is for sure in the running for the Super Bowl, and therefore, as a result, is able to obtain these guys for these kind of one-year rental style contracts, where you're able to get a Kareem Hunt or, D-Hop or, A, B, C, D, E, where a team is going to be willing to work with you out of their division, or out of the, even out of their immediate division, or even out of the conference, simply because the guys are willing to go there. Right? Like D-Hop is willing to go to your team because you're the Chiefs.
Yeah. Then also, I mean, there's one thing about it. I mean, for Andre Hopkins, because do you remember that Patrick Mahomes admitted that he was watching the tape of DeAndre Hopkins? I mean, he just saw like he was open on many of these routes and open for the touchdown, where he was forced to drive his skills, because he really needs to really start feeling that feeling that game a little bit better. But I really hope that he wants to tighten up with this game. But eventually, I mean, that defense, no one can trust about all of his past 2 years till now, because he used that elite field vision when they have all these weapons for that reason. I mean, the truth, I mean, between for the Kansas City Chiefs, I mean, they just traded for Travis Kelce 20 point. 2.0. I mean, he's getting in trouble than Triple 10 for the neck. No one is going to make it like a defense pay for that. I mean, no one is going to find soft spots in the zones. I mean, no one has to turn to the chance of the 3rd and 6. So if they need to fill enough of the hope of the worst and stay healthy when it comes to bad, I mean, let's be honest. The sheer that the fact that kills get more consistently wide getting triple team is one of the most alternative shenanigans in football history.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's like it was just like a good move for Hopkins, and I think it's going to just improve things moving forward. Like we've already seen kind of a resurgence with Kelce, and I think we saw from this Bucs game, which, like, I mean, credit to Baker Mayfield, and I mean that Bucs team, like they played, that was a hell of a game, and
dude,
honestly,
Baker Mayfield is amazing, bro.
Yeah, and I mean, honestly, for them
he had nobody, and he came back. And
Mm-hmm.
thank you to Baker Mayfield, because by extending it helped with fantasy. So
yeah, no, exactly. Yeah, like I said, man, I was in a close match and it went to overtime, and Kareem Hunt getting the touchdown made me win by a point. So
wow,
it was a real sick Monday night for your boy. Let's say it that way. But yeah, I mean, really, I think with the D-Hop thing, you saw already a drastic increase in the offensive production. I know, like, I texted you guys and didn't get a single response, but like, I mean, as a team, they were what were they on third down? They were 12 for 18 on third down. Mahomes was 11 for 13 passing the ball, 10 first down completions on 3 touchdowns. I mean, that's just ridiculous stat line. It just shows, when it came to the moments of the Mahomes magic of extending plays, running around the pocket, and used to be Kelce was the one guy to find the soft spot in the zone. Well, now you got Kelce and D-Hop, and we saw, how that opened things up. So, as a Chiefs fan, you only got to be excited you got to obviously pray that D-Hop stays healthy, and Kelce and Mahomes, because there was an injury scare with Mahomes for a second, and I was like, holy shit, there goes our whole season, because that looked bad. I thought it was an Achilles, dude.
Hold on, not yet, because we don't even know how good Carson Wentz is going to look. And Andy Reid has made lesser talented people than Carson Wentz look pretty good to back up.
Come on,
you're not wrong.
Offense,
you're not wrong, but yeah, that offense is only as good as Patrick Mahomes takes it, because I mean they just don't have the weapon. If everyone was healthy, I'd be like, yeah, I think anyone could probably be efficient in this offense. If you had a healthy Pacheco, a healthy Hollywood Brown, a healthy Rashee Rice. a healthy amenity. Like, because I mean, the fact is, like, their defense is still elite. Their defense, gets stops, and
defense is why you're undefeated.
What this team has turned into. Like, the beginning of the Mahomes era was, we're a track meet team. We're going to outscore you. We're going to throw the ball 40-plus yards down the field, score 40-plus points a game. And then they transitioned to, now we just are a stout defensive team with a really good offense that will be elite when they need to be, and otherwise, manage the game. Yeah, and that's kind of the way the Chiefs play. Because, like, even in most of these games, it's like the other team makes a decision to lose it for themselves because of the who they're playing. Like, they did, like, Ravens decide that you can go back to really any of the close games. Like, that's, I mean, like, Bucks, I don't know why I would have gone for 2, just because, like, with the overtime rules here, it's a 50-50 chance, and Mahomes is going to drive down and score. Like, that was just
the other thing is, even if you do win the coin toss in overtime, you still got to drive the length of the field to go score. Whereas you're at the 2-yard line, and it's just like, all right, get it in the end zone, draw up your best play.
I mean, but that's just what this team is now. It's an elite team.
That's what you have to do to beat them.
That finds that doesn't beat themselves, and you have to beat them, which means you have to play an absolute perfect game. And up to this point, every team has made some decision, or some mistake has happened, or a ref's made a call, as I'm sure someone will comment here in a second.
But one last thing.
You guys were getting the ref calls before anyway. Like that's just par for the course. But I'm telling you, man, I can't see them losing anymore, because you know who I compare your Chiefs team of 2024 to? The Golden State Warriors when they got Kevin Durant. It's like nobody's beating you, man. Nobody, because I can't even think of any ways. Like I heard you guys when you said, "Oh, well, Denver has a chance." I'll make you a promise right now, Rich, since I probably,
was wild, Mike.
I bet you the Chiefs will, like, decide to manage that game, and then they're just going to beat them anyway. So they'll make it look close enough that you thought you had a chance, and then you're going to lose because
but
the Chiefs
also there is
so
a
good
thing
at it, man. They're so good at managing it.
Yeah, between Kansas City Chiefs versus
we have to. No, so we have to. We got to move on to looking ahead to the week.
We got to talk about the Chargers game.
Reviewing all of the trades and whatnot.
Chargers
but, Robert, I don't think we touched. Yeah, sorry, Robert. We didn't talk about your Chargers.
Yes, sir.
What
Jameis
about your
Winston
trades
showed up
and go in that direction?
The real Jameis stood
up.
I
mean, I pretty much predicted this game exactly. I actually got the Browns' exact score, 10 points. I said the game was going to be 23-10. We ended up winning 27-10. Could have been 31-10 if Dicker could make an extra point in his field goal, but he's like the one guy I don't really worry about have a bad day. If you're ever going to have a bad day kicking, you want to do it in a blowout like this. So obviously the team has all the confidence in the world in him. I'm not too worried about it. But this is the Jameis Winston experience. This was the guy who went 30 for 30, 30 touchdowns, 30 interceptions, and he almost followed that touchdown interception ratio perfectly if it wasn't for a garbage time fantastic catch by Cedric Tillman. Because there's just nothing you could do with that. I mean, perfect coverage, and he just made a heck of a grab.
Perfect ball by Jameis.
Yeah, I know. It was that was his best throw of the entire
moment ball.
Yeah, that was the high point for Browns fans was that throw by Jameis. Because there was about 7 other ones he had in that game that could have been interceptions. So the fact he only walked out of that game with 3 picks is kind of an indictment from how bad he played. But I mean, it was expected. He went up against the worst pass defense in the league last week against the Ravens, and you then switch around and face one of the toughest defenses in all of football in the Chargers. This is kind of what you get. So obviously secondary balled out. I just said, 6 incompletions forced, 3 picks. We even had 2 dropped ones. So like I said, it could have been a lot worse than what it was. And only 2 missed tackles. I mean, defense is playing very disciplined, very tight-knit, hard-nosed football. I mean, this is Jesse Minter. I mean, all over. The fact that he has this defense, which is essentially the same defense, same players as last year, minus a couple of castaways, if you will, from other teams, and a couple of the rookies we have. basically the same defense, and you see the night and day difference from last year to this. I think last year we were 24th in defense or in points allowed per game. We're first this year. We still haven't allowed a team to go over 20 points yet. And that one game we did allow 20 points was the game Herbert got injured in. So in games that Herbert starts and finishes, the most points we've allowed is 17, and that's to the undefeated Chiefs. It's pretty damn good defense.
If Herbert gets 100% healthy, dude.
I mean, he looks 100% healthy to me. He took off for a 40-yard run.
Well,
you
know what I'm saying, like where he's not having to favor.
That,
I think he's still favoring it a little.
I don't think he is. If you look at him play, he looks very comfortable out there. And I mean, he got sacked 6 times this past week against the Browns. His body got fucking bent and contorted in every way possible. So, I mean, if he can walk out of that game and he's still good, I think he's pretty good.
Anakin's fine, dude.
They need to, get the other. You know who you guys need to draft is the other tackle from LSU that's playing this year.
Oh,
just bookend everybody.
No, we don't need tackles. We need interior O-line, and I'll get to that in a minute. But I mean, we did pretty much a lot of what I expected to do. Had us winning comfortably. Had us winning by 13. We ended up winning by 17. We made the run game respectable, 23 rushes for 96 yards, 4.2 a carry. Again, nothing crazy, nothing fancy. Yeah, J.K. Dobbins, man. I mean, he's been
back.
He's been great,
fantasy winner for me.
he definitely has a chance to be comeback player of the year, especially if he keeps this up. I think he's on pace for like 1,300 yards or something.
We've progressed. We've gotten off the J.K. Dobbins for MVP talk.
Yeah, remember? Yeah, when 2 weeks in, when he was at 9.9 yards a carry. Yeah, definitely not.
He looked like Ashton Genty when the season started.
Yeah, I mean, he was gonna be. Yeah, he looked like he was gonna have the greatest running back season of all time. AP off an Achilles or off an ACL tear winning MVP. J.K. Dobbins about to say, "Hold my beer," while I rush for 10 yards a clip this season. But you know, but listen, there were some things that obviously weren't great and some really negative takeaways. Oh, sorry, before that, defensive player of the game for me, Tarheeb Still, 5th round rookie, 5 total tackles, 3 pass breakups, 1 INT. I mean, he was just. I mean, the fact that we have what looks to be 2 potential starting caliber cornerbacks, and they were both drafted in the 5th round, Cam Hart and Tarheeb Still. I mean, it's just such a difference. They were easy. Although J.K. Dobbins got drafted in a lot of my leagues, so I don't know. The fact you were able to get him on a waiver wire pickup is crazy. But yeah, sorry. Like I said, the fact that we're getting 2 starting caliber cornerbacks in the 5th round in one draft, I mean, just, Angelo, cool. you can enjoy Telesco all you want, man, but I'm never. You're never gonna get that You're never gonna get that kind of draft production from Telesco. 2 starting caliber players at the same position in the same round. That's just never happening with Telesco.
Again, I'm just going off of what I'm seeing, and maybe I'm overseeing but
I'm going off of
and Jackson Howard Johnson to me already.
Yeah, I mean,
like
he
hit a jackpot, dude.
He had a couple
I didn't even think Glaze was going to be that good.
Yeah, a couple guys fall into his lap.
Good.
Hey, he's not great, you know. But Bowers fell into your lap,
dude. But Joe Alt went into 1st round. That's what I'm saying.
I'm not saying he's Joe Alt. Is he Tarheeb Still? Is he any of these starting caliber players in the background? No.
If can find us a 3rd round guy that could end up being a starter, maybe our rebuild won't take so long. Maybe he'll actually.
All I'm saying is I had Telesco as a GM for a decade plus, and I know what he is and what he isn't. So that's fine. If you think that he's going to turn that around for you, you know what? I'm all for it. You can believe that. I'm just talking from experience and from witnessing what he's done in drafts and about him trading up to get QBs. He's never had the opportunity to trade up for a QB because he had Phillip Rivers for half his tenure.
Also, Robert.
He lucked into Justin Herbert in the 6th pick after Joe Burrow and Tua got picked. So again, like, you know, he lucks into 1st round picks. Sometimes players fall. Derwin James fell to him. Herbert fell to him. I mean, some of these guys fall to him. Yeah, he made a great 3rd round pick in it. Yeah, Bosa.
But Robert, I gotta tell you, what about like the wide receiver room? Because they definitely stepped it up between for Lima Colony and Johnston that started to shine.
Exactly.
But of
Quentin
course,
Johnson looks great.
But there's one thing that's being suspect about Robert, because the online still suspect, but I don't know who can even get a face it out for right now, because if they're gonna add new guys, it may backfire, since the online depends heavily on consistency. Because the online might be suspect, but it might be the overstatement, because the interior line, they got the biggest boot on the checks, because not a whole lot they can do about for the mid-season, they thought to say, because how Quentin Johnson and Led have been bringing like Mike Beckett will be heard of the progress. I mean, if Browns and Saints, they have such a nightmare cap, including for the Chargers, but I'm definitely surprised that it didn't sell more to their sheep. But I think that it could have been a loss because of bad play calling in the second half, because they absolutely, there's a chance if the Chargers could finish off the game like they beat them. Because if the Chargers could be like it had they been not disappointed at all. But man, Money Smith, they just right here on the nail hit one, because as far as the wide receivers,
Raf, hold on, okay. Hold on. Alex and I have got to get into the Chiefs Broncos game coming up, because it's obviously a divisional rival game showing up. So we're gonna move past the discussion here in terms of adding on to the dogpiling of Telesco. We can discuss that later on, because trust me, he's not going anywhere in a week. So we have plenty. We have plenty of time to get into that for sure. But Alex and I are going to get into the divisional rival game coming up here, obviously with the Chiefs versus my Denver Broncos. So Alex, obviously, as we were kind of alluding to earlier, I mean, I see this as a slugfest. I kind of see this as a bit of a defensive match where I think we're closer matched, because we're obviously trying to aim to compete with one another within the division. I think that my Denver Broncos, based on what we did last season, elevated our defense to compete with the Chiefs, and I think we've kind of taken our defense another step actually this year than we were last year. I think that's indisputable at this point. Despite the fact how we played against the Ravens. The Ravens, we were talking about earlier in the season, they're a different beast. They're from a different division. They play differently than our division does typically. We are much more evenly matched when it comes to how our teams compete against each other within the AFC West. I see this as a relatively low-scoring game despite the Chiefs' success as of late. I think this is a bit of a change from what we've seen. I don't know what your thoughts are, and I'm curious as to kind of where you're at.
Yeah. So, as I kind of alluded to earlier, I do expect the Chiefs to lose a game, and I do expect them to split with some AFC West team that is not in black and silver. But so, I mean, anyway,
they're not losing a game. If there was one game you would lose, it would probably be at Denver against the black and silver, because even as depleted as we are, you just So that's what I'm trying to tell you is you're not going to lose, man. You're not losing.
Oh my god!
Stop acting. You're like the pretty girl who keeps saying you're not that pretty. Stop it, dude. Like you're
Angela,
you're
the ugly girl who keeps saying that she's pretty, thinking that this Raiders
no, Robert,
team is
you're the ugly girl.
Anywhere. remember
when
the Raiders were never going to lose to KC again?
Yeah. Right. But yeah,
so I mean, Alex, your thoughts.
Yeah, so I mean, any AFC West game is close. They always have been and always will be. Denver, obviously, I think has an elite defense. The Ravens game is a bit of an outlier looking at the season collectively. But I mean, the question would be, did Baltimore expose some things that the Chiefs can capitalize on now that they, have a more well-rounded offense? I don't think so, just because of kind of like you said, the familiarity of the team and just the fact that their defense is good. And I mean, they did win a game last year. So I think it'll be a close game. I think they're 8.5-point favorites. I probably see this. I mean, Chiefs have yet to win a game by more than 7 points. I don't see that score differential really changing. So I'll put this at like a 28-21 game just to be safe.
Yeah.
Biggest key, I think, obviously is D-Hop and how they build with that relationship, or what that opens up for Kelsey. I got to anticipate that Surtain will be with D-Hop. So you almost have to anticipate this to be a big Kelsey and maybe worthy game. Yeah. Juju is questionable. That certainly adds into the fold if he's there. But yeah, I mean, that's a big thing for the offense, because you got to know Denver's going to bring a lot of simulated pressures, and they're going to have a good game plan, which I have faith Reed's doing. Defensively, I think the biggest factor is if they can stop the Broncos' run game, because I think that's what Denver has shown. That's how they are effective offensively, is if they can kind of manage the line of scrimmage and the clock a little bit through the run game. Thinking about like the Saints game, obviously I was like a JV squad, but I mean, you saw how different Bo Nix looked with a good run game versus, when they can't really get that going. This Chiefs defense has sometimes, I mean, been pretty elite this year so far across the board, but the run defense has kind of always been the one part of, if a team can get that going, it's going to be a much longer day than it usually is. So I think that's the biggest key for them defensively. If they can stop that, I really don't see Bo Nix being able to do what he would need to do to keep up with the game. Not to say that they're going to like run away with it offensively, but I think it's going to come down to a moment where Bo Nix is going to have to make a very crucial throw that I don't know that he can make, unless, of course, they can set up their offense through the run game.
I agree with that as a general piece. I think our run game is kind of what allows our team to be successful. I think it helps set the tone, because it always gives us a crutch to kind of lean back on if certain things, if we don't, get the rest of our, we don't get the rest of our offense going. I think it's kind of the one thing that kind of, if we can churn the run game, it kind of helps control the clock. It helps push the offensive forward. And I think it kind of goes to my previous comments in previous shows. And this is where we kind of got into it. I'm not going to get into those details again, but I think it's relevant in this game, which is we saw when a more dominant defense started to control the Denver Broncos offense, which I'm referring to the Ravens, which was it basically forced the defense to kind of get worn down. They're elite this year. There is no denying that at this point. They are in an upper echelon, like top 5 kind of status for sure. However, if you end up with another defense on the other side of the ball that is able to completely obliterate your offense and kind of control all elements of the line, the Denver Broncos offense does not have the player personnel on the offensive line to be bullies. They are not capable of pushing guys out the way on a consistent basis who are more aggressive on the D line than they are. We have struggled in certain games this year with my Denver Broncos. With that in mind, I do think that there are some scheme changes that the Broncos can put in place in this particular game. And Alex, I'm saying this particular game because I think tables will turn a little bit as the season goes on. I actually think my Denver Broncos are probably going to get slightly worse as the season goes on with injuries, because I just think our issue right now is we started off doing not great. Then we got a few guys back that got hurt in preseason and then started doing better. And now we're starting to see a few guys getting banged up again. And it kind of just shows we're close in terms of roster development. Like Sean Payton has done a great job at churning some guys out that are not well suited for the vision, but he's almost there. He's not there yet. And so I think what we're going to see is this may be the game where the Broncos are able to overtake the Chiefs. And this is really, I think, our one shot, because we have probably the best health we're going to have for the remainder of the season. I think we're going to start getting a few more guys hurt. And I think the relevant guys that are hurt, if they've come back, they're either going to show out or they're going to be shown the door. And I think that the issue that we're going to end up with is this is the game to win. So if I had to predict anything based on what I saw, I think Sean Payton is not going to allow this team, because I think he does he's a great coach. My only complaint on my Denver Broncos is not coaching with Sean Payton. He has done so much that I've seen where my issue is not the coach. My issue is not our head coach. We'll just put it that way. So I actually think that this has the potential of being one of those teeter-totter games. And I am going to pick the Broncos to win this one, but I don't think we're going to beat you guys the second go-round. I actually think we're going to win the first game against the Chiefs in this particular one.
Arrowhead.
And I think we're going to fall in Arrowhead. I think we've done that a couple times before. Like, this is not an unprecedented thing. We have beaten the Chiefs in Arrowhead before. And so it's not like this, wild prediction here. I think we beat the Chiefs in Arrowhead, and I think it gives my Denver Broncos some form of false sense of hope to the season. I see this as being a low-scoring game, though. I believe this is a defensive slugfest in which the Broncos are probably able to do a little bit more. And part of the reason for that prediction is Mahomes, up until last game, has actually had some struggles in terms of making some bad decisions. And I think the Broncos will continue or revert Mahomes to that look this season based on their defense and the secondary. Now, you have some different players.
That's why I said, we saw D-Hop. That was almost a night and day difference. Yeah. So, you don't know.
But I think there's a secondary that can, I'm not saying negate fully, but certainly keep up with a guy like D-Hop and help bracket Kelsey the same way and keep the Chiefs honest in this game. I just think it comes down to, I'm if nothing but consistent in the way that I kind of assess games and things. I think that the Denver Broncos, as we sit today, have player personnel that match up well against the Chiefs. I think our secondary overall, both safeties and cornerbacks, match well against your team today. Okay, this is without injuries. This is without the other things. So today, I think we match well against the Chiefs. I see this somewhere between a 21 and 17 point kind of upper points for my Denver Broncos, because the Chiefs defense is legit. Like they are a much better defense than people are giving them credit for. And I think that with the Denver Broncos defense being as good as they are, I believe that there's the potential for like a pick six, for example, because of the secondary play and Mahomes' issues.
Yeah, Justin Simmons,
Justin Simmons is gone, which I'm happy about. But I do agree, he seems to have Mahomes' number. Like, that seems to be his.
He always picks him up. He even got him in Atlanta.
Yeah, but I think that you have. I think Mahomes may underestimate a guy like Moss, and I think that Mahomes may underestimate.
Underestimate.
Pardon me?
Underestimate.
Well, that was not meant. That was not meant to be a pun. Underestimate. Hey, look at me, guys. No, but I actually think that he's going to underestimate Moss. I think he's going to underestimate some of the other guys that are in the secondary, because he hasn't played against some of them yet, and he will. And I think that he assesses the team properly based upon how we played earlier in the season, that he ought, and if it's his best interest at least, to treat them like a formidable opponent, because they are. Our secondary has played very well this season, and I think that could be an Achilles heel for Mahomes, potentially yielding to a pick six. They've done so several times this year. Surtain has got at least one, and another one that basically was game changers against some of our opponents this year. I expect more of the same. I do think that the second game where you guys come to Mile High, I think that the Broncos are a slightly different look team at that point of the season because of injury, which will put us behind the eight ball. This is really, in my opinion, the game that we have the potential to beat the Chiefs because of health. That's just kind of where I'm at with it, generally speaking. And if we don't beat the Chiefs this game, I don't give my team much of a chance at continuing the streak. I don't think. I just don't think it's possible.
Hey, Alex, I was gonna say, because I know you're gonna do your fantasy show tonight. For everybody who has Kelsey, man, start him and start him hard, because Kelsey's about to get 49 fantasy points against the Broncos.
For both of us, I hope you're right. You know, I don't know. Like I said, I think that the D-Hop edition is the key component.
He's Kevin Durant, dude. He's Kevin Durant. He opened everyone else up, and when Juju comes back, man, this thing is over. So, and what I was going to say with you, Rich, is it's interesting to me because I do believe Denver will not only lose this game, but it will be close just because I feel like the Chiefs keep doing it that way. It'll be close or whatever.
I gotta head out,
but they're going to lose. Oh, see you, Alex.
Sorry.
But when Denver loses this game, Rich, now you're at 5-5. So are you guys gonna start doing what we're doing, which is because we're about to meet each other? Because your next game after that is Atlanta. I'm gonna assume that Atlanta's not gonna try to lose that game because they're leading their division. So now, if you're 5-6 and you're meeting the 2-9 or the 2-8 Raiders at that point, it's the loser bowl at Allegiant, man. I mean, you know, we'll be fine if you beat us because we're trying to get Cam Ward, baby. So, you know, but what do you think? You think Peyton's going to try all year?
Yeah, I don't think he has it in him to try to lose or try to tank. I just don't think that's the way Sean Payton plays football. So I don't see that happening. Now, I think there needs to be some realistic expectations and some realistic adjustments for my Denver Broncos in terms of where we're at from a roster composition perspective. I think what we're ultimately seeing is what good coaching gets you, right? Which is you have a team that is overperforming based upon the current talent on the team because of good coaching. I think Vance Joseph has his team on point, generally speaking, and he is doing so with dudes that, you know, were packing grocery bags last year. Largely, these are not household names, right? We lost, you know, my man Singleton, who I have not been shy in saying is an absolute beast at the inside linebacker position.
Yeah.
He is.
No, he's amazing, dude.
He is stellar, right? Like he is not necessarily the guy that's going to be the coverage linebacker that you're looking for to like track a wide receiver as they go down the field. But if you're looking for a dude to kind of lock down sideline to sideline and be an absolute sure tackler, like you want him ×2 on your team. You know, like he's the guy. Like he's that dude. And so, you know, you get him and another guy kind of paired with him to be the coverage guy, and you have an ideal linebacker core for the inside. But the issue here with my Denver Broncos is we've lost some key guys. Some other guys have stepped up, but those guys that have stepped up, they started high and have kind of come back down to earth a little bit as the season's gone on. And so we're looking for these guys to bounce back, to get over themselves, to kind of come back into their own and level out in some regards. Like highs and lows are never a good thing for a team. You want to be able to gauge exactly where you are and what you need. And right now the Broncos have seemingly gone through certain highs and then certain lows. We kind of really need to kind of gauge where in that range we actually sit. And if this means that we have to do a full assessment at the end of the season because we're going to play this yo-yo game the entire season, I mean, that's going to suck for me in the off season as part of my analysis because that makes my life a lot harder.
Yeah.
But so be it. I you know, it is what it is. You just got to deal with it. But I think that's kind of where we've been this season with my Denver Broncos, which is we've done well again in certain games that people didn't think we were going to do well in. I think the Bucs are a good example of that, where we just absolutely slaughtered that team and made them look like a second-rate team. And then the Bucs came back and have said, no, we're not that bad. So that's fine, but we still made you look bad, right? Like we still did. We made you look awful. The Saints game, again, they were, you know, tier 4 guys on their team. So that's really nothing. You don't want to really brag about that because you're basically playing a practice squad. So, you know, slow your roll and shut up. And then
that was the Drew Brees game.
And then, you know,
That was the Drew Brees
Sure.
hollow.
Yeah, so let's slow clap and say yay, but like whatever, like it is what it is. And then on the flip side there, and then you play the Panthers, which, you know, everyone expects you to beat the Panthers. I'm sorry, it's just a fact. And it is what it is. So I think my Broncos have had some ups and downs, some ebbs and flows, and we kind of really just need to see where we're at. I still maintain the fact that the reason why the Broncos are so, you know, peak and valley is it's the offense. It's not our defense. Like the problem is not the defense. The problem is the offense. And you end up with these steep peaks and steep valleys when you play a rookie quarterback. So am I willing to accept the fact that Bo Nix is a rookie? Yes. Am I also willing to be honest and say that you end up with these highs and lows because he's a rookie? Yes. Do I think that he has progressed faster than I thought he would, generally speaking? Yes. It doesn't change the fact, though, that while his floor is slowly creeping upwards, which is a good thing for my team, not great for others in the division, but a good thing for my team. But the problem is that he's still a rookie and he still does stupid things because he's a rookie. And some of those stupid things include not reading the field properly, assessing when a crosser will be open in a step, and then leading the passer to allow that wide receiver to catch the ball. Little quirks that are NFL-style passes and NFL-style plays that you expect of an NFL-caliber quarterback. And I think that someone like Stidham or Wilson generally make. The problem is that they often misthrow them slightly, which then kind of puts their team at a disadvantage sometimes if they're pressured to throw. Whereas Bo Nix is at least a smart enough quarterback to not necessarily put his team in that position. So with that in mind, I kind of maintain my general assessment of my Denver Broncos for this week against the Chiefs. We seem to be the one team that are able to lock Mahomes down into those lower scoring games compared to other teams within the division. It just seems to be what the Broncos have done for the last several years, at least. I expect more of the same simply because history has not told me otherwise. My assessment and analysis will change if if I get more data, which is going to be this upcoming game, to then change my mind. But for right now, I kind of maintain where I'm at. I think this is a squeaker of a win for my Denver Broncos. It'll probably be one of those like last minute field goal type plays that you expect from a divisional rival sort of thing, and come down to coaching. So if Sean Payton coaches a good game, I think my Broncos can win. If there's some bad play calling, etc., I think we're going to lose by a field goal or something similar in that regard. And with that in mind, obviously the Raiders are on their bye week, if I'm not mistaken, this week, if my memory serves correctly. I think this is your bye week.
The most exciting thing that happened to us was Norv Turner.
Right. But the Raiders are going to have some time to recalibrate their team this kind of week where they have the gap. It'll be interesting to see what happens. But with that in mind, I'm going to throw over to you, Robert, get a quick assessment, and then we can close out the show and hope and pray that those of us that play all win except for Alex's Chiefs.
Yeah, so coming off obviously a good win against a good Browns defense, we're now facing another pretty good defense but not great team in the Titans. Starting off a 3-game home stretch. This is easily the easiest game of those 3. We have this game, and then we go back-to-back primetime games against 2 AFC North teams, the Bengals and the Ravens, respectively. So this is a 1,000% must-win. It is.
Yeah, I need Herbert to go off, man. I'm starting him on one.
Yeah, I would maybe hold off potentially starting him. It is a really good, not really good, but it is a pretty stout Titans defense. So
now you know what I believe in for the Chargers and why I started them? Because Quentin Johnson, Josh Palmer, and Lad McConkey, man.
Hey,
pick your poison, dude.
Didn't see that one coming. But see, this is just even more of a testament as to why Herbert is such a damn good quarterback, because that receiving core, I think only Mahomes and maybe 2 other guys, maybe Allen, and maybe I don't even know if Lamar. I don't even know if Lamar would be able to make that receiving core work. But either way, I expect another win from us, and I'm going to say dominant win, but by dominant, I just mean by 2 scores. I have us winning this one by 17. I'm going to say this one's going to be like a 28, like 28-10, 28-13-ish game. I have us winning by 3 scores, though. I mean, I don't even know who they're going to have out there at quarterback. I think it's Mason Rudolph, but there's some reports that it might be Levis. It doesn't matter who they have out there. We're going to absolutely – I mean – I was skeptical about the Browns game because it was Jameis, and it's they you look at that team as 1-0, not what they were because it's a brand new quarterback, whatever, and they did beat the Ravens, but that's just chalking it up to a divisional game. Anything could happen in those. So I think the spread
30 Jameis, man, he's gonna
it's 30-30 Jameis exactly. So the spread for us is at -7.5. That's about what I'd put it at.
Yeah,
it's going to be just a typical Chargers game. Don't turn the ball over, play clean football, run the ball enough that they have to respect it, and then just let Herbert feast off the play action. They do have a good pass rush. It's obviously nothing compared to what the Browns had with Myles Garrett and some of those other guys.
Dude, I think your defense is going to destroy the Titans, bro.
Yeah,
like, Barry's out now. The defense is going to have a field day. If there was a game to make the Chargers go, wow, the Chargers defense is pretty good, it's going to be this game.
Yeah, I mean,
it's just going to destroy them.
The Chargers are tied this week for second with the Eagles for the biggest point spread. The biggest point spread this week is actually the Chiefs against the Broncos. They're at -8.5.
That makes sense.
So it's gonna be a tough game. It's gonna be probably for like the first half, kind of a back and forth, but I do expect us to pull away with it. Herbert's just been playing unbelievable, and he looks like he's completely healed off that ankle injury. I don't see anything in his game that warrants me to be worried about it. He's been running the ball fine. Didn't need to run it last week against the Browns because there was really no lanes for him, and I mean he was throwing a party. He was like 16 for 18, 250, and 2 touchdowns at the half. Had a perfect passer rating, so no reason for you to try to even put yourself in harm's way. But I feel like if he has to use his legs this game, he certainly will. That'll just help the run game more. But you
guys are kind of in that hunt, like what I was saying to Rich about how
we're 5-3 right now.
Yeah, because if the Chiefs, which I think is what's going to happen, if the Broncos get destroyed or lose or whatever, they should be like what Rich is saying. They should be on the we'll do our best, but what's our worst case scenario? We pick top 10, right? And that's what my whole thing with the Raiders is. It's like, dude, we have a chance to go get Cam Ward. Let's seriously, Rich. It's such a thing that Max Crosby, on his own fucking show, said, "I want to manifest these interviews where I'm gonna have." He said, "I want to have Shedeur Sanders and Cam Ward come to my show, the Rush Podcast, and explain to me make a case for why they should be picked first." And then when his partners asked him like a question or something, Max Crosby's answer was, "Well, I don't want to say anything too much because one of these guys is going to end up being my quarterback." Dude, he said it. Our own leader already knows we're in tank phase. So, we're just going to be that fun, entertaining opponent like in a boxing match for people where, hey, we'll look good for you, Rich, and what round would you like to knock us out on Thanksgiving weekend? That's how we're going to play this year.
Well, actually, a smart opponent, Angela, will accidentally trip and fall so that they look like they're knocked out, but they don't actually take the hit. And as a boxing guy, I know exactly, exactly what I'm talking about. So we're good. For those of us who don't know, that's like the boxing equivalent of like looking at the World Cup and seeing the Italian team always dive and claim that they got hit in the knee, even though the guy hit them in the shoulder. It's kind of that kind of move, except flip it over to boxing, right? So, Robert, in terms of your overall assessment of your upcoming game, do you see any Achilles heel options for you? Are you concerned with a specific thing? Or are you kind of saying, hey, no, I think we got this?
Yeah, this team, I mean, the Titans, like,
garbage.
I'm not concerned about the quarterback. I'm not concerned about the O-line. Their defense is like the only thing that gives me like some slight pause. But even then, we have the type of team that's capable of just wearing them down, running the ball here and there, kicking a field goal here, scoring a touchdown there. So I think when it's all said and done, the game will look like a quote-unquote blowout, but you're going to look at the game and watch the all-22 and be like, okay, the Chargers just kind of do what they've been doing all season, and that's wear the other team down, make them tackle, make them hit hard, make them earn make them earn every yard that they gain. You know, yeah, if you're going to get a 13-yard, 15-yard catch over the middle, you might complete that pass in the first, second quarter, but come around third, fourth, you're not even going to think about putting your hands up for that ball because you know Derwin James is coming over the top to crack you. So it's weird because I'm not used to being in a position where the Chargers are like the overwhelming
about
favorite.
To be 6-3, yeah,
yeah, well, yeah. But that's just the shocking difference from coaching staffs from last year to this year, and just the polar opposite that we have.
Right. Hey, can I say this too, Rich,
agree
about the Chargers? So, Robert, the one thing I'll say is you'll be 6-3. So this is the gauntlet part where we're going to find out if you guys are going to be able to sneak in as a playoffs, because your next set of games are Bengals, Ravens, Falcons, Chiefs, Buccaneers. Those are all playoff teams, dude. Those are all teams.
The Bucks probably not. Bucks are like the only team in there that's not a playoff team.
I disagree, dude. When Mike Evans comes back, like what the Bucks showed me on that Chiefs game is that Baker Mayfield's the raw dog, man. He's trying to get that team to win. He's gonna will that team to win.
I just don't think
the Falcons screw up, they might get
But yeah, that's the thing. It's reliant on the Falcons screwing up for them to have a playoff spot, because I don't think they're getting in on a wild card. There's just too many teams in the NFC that are good so they have to win that division, and right now they're 2 games behind with all those injuries.
Yeah, that's true.
But I digress.
There's always a team or two every year that is, if they didn't have injuries, they would have done the thing. Okay.
And that's the Bucks.
So to be fair to the Bucks, I think that's them this year. I don't think they're as bad as their record shows, but I also don't think that they can overcome the deficit that injuries have put them in. I also see my Broncos kind of tanking a little bit near the back end of the season as a result of injuries and talent depth as well. And I can kind of see my Denver Broncos being put in a similar category where it's like they're definitely like there, if you will. But as a result of injuries and some other things, you're going to, I think, start seeing the Broncos slide a little bit. And I think the Chargers are going to be ascending into that second spot. So while I do believe that my Broncos defense, as I predicted, was going to be a top tier defense, and I think we're going to maintain that.
If Singleton didn't get hurt, dude, you guys are like right up. I mean, like you guys were awesome. I was like, damn, they're hella good.
Right. And I said that at the beginning of the year, saying that just because you don't know the guys doesn't mean we're not going to kill you. And I think that we are and could have been that good. So, but with that in mind, Robert, I actually agree with your assessment. I think you're going to grind the Titans down. I think this is going to end up being kind of one of those, 35-17 type games where you wonder where the extra points came from at the end sort of deal. I can see that kind of happening, and I kind of agree. No, I'm being serious. Like, I think that's true. And I think we're in lockstep in there. But, guys, we are getting dangerously close to where we need to end this show, and I'd like to end it there on that point there, agreeing with Robert. Angelo, thank you for coming in, stepping in for Jack, who is sick and simply just didn't want to see everybody here. It just is what it is. No, just kidding.
He just purposely knew it was a bye week and was like, I can't talk about
he's actually sick. So guys, I want to thank all of you for joining us live. We have a division game coming up with the Chiefs and Broncos. Definitely something to pay attention to. Alex and I will obviously have a bit of a heated discussion when he and I are back on the show next week. And until next week, guys, where the West Side's the best side. Peace.
Fast lane when I pass in the street, bag of money in the passenger seat. Simcoe's been asking for me on the road from the west to the east. Way up, I might never come down, cause the coast's racking up the flame out.